Hello guys, and welcome to part 12 of me making a film score generator. 2 weeks ago, I started a third version of the film score generator, which was a project I started over a year ago. My past 2 film score generators kind of sucked, because the music they generated sounded more like a blur of random notes than an actual song. So, I learned from my mistakes over the years and started the third film score generator. And once again, it is not seeming promising. Anyways, the first thing I did was create a new MIDI importer. This is because my previous AI didn't really have a MIDI importer. Instead, it required me to first import the MIDI file into a MIDI parser, then copy and paste the massive parsed file into the project to be processed again. Considering that the parse text's file size was up to 10 times larger than the original MIDI, and that I am planning on mass importing training music for my new AI, this would not be possible under Scratch's limitations. So, I tried my best to remember how MIDI worked and got coding. Like last time, I had to ditch using MuseCore's MIDI files and instead use FL Studio, because MuseCore's files always have this weird 10-byte string between every few notes that I could not find any explanation for. Another challenge I faced was getting my code to properly find the start and end times of every note, especially when a channel had multiple notes playing at once. This is because in part of my plan, I said that I would have to combine every MIDI channel into a single one, with notes from different instruments occurring right next to each other instead of in another section. This greatly confused the AI, since on top of finding note-off events for multiple notes, it had to remember which note-off event was from which channel. So, I coded a simple MIDI player, which could help me easily identify bugged-out notes, and eventually, I got it to work. My next step was to make a chord identifier. I decided to completely split the chord identifier from the MIDI importer. This included separating the notes list that I had previously used for almost everything. This was mainly because I didn't want to remake my MIDI player that was currently only compatible with the note list that had not been processed and swapped around by the chord identifier. So, for the chord identifier, I did everything I had planned for, assigning every note to a channel, then scanning for chords at every note with a different start time. Everything works, but not very well. The chord identifier would make some very strange chord choices. For example, the algorithm would choose a chord that technically does fit if you isolated the notes, but sound very out of place along with the other chords. Also, when the notes at one given time are not sufficient to identify a chord, it will move on to the next chord without emptying the list of notes. This makes it so there is a slight delay, where the code creates a hybrid between the previous and current chord, before it settles on the correct chord. The algorithm also has a problem with identifying chords when there are only short notes as opposed to long chords. So, there is still a lot to improve on. Also, I am starting to doubt if finding chords and copying all the notes in them is a very good idea. I mean, if the AI doesn't actually learn how to generate original melodies, then wouldn't that make it a tool that mixes up random fragments of plagiarized songs and puts them into one? If I want my AI to still be an AI, I will have to do some serious plan changing. But for now, I just have to get my chord identifier to work. See you next time, and bye.